It's a little combo pack I got going on here. Ben Carson, the head of housing and urban development, put into this post to help build housing for poor people, for poor Americans, so they can live in clean and affordable housing. Well, apparently there are a lot of people who are here illegally. What they are, they're not undocumented migrants. They're illegal aliens. That's the legal terminology, and I'm going to use the legal terminology. Illegal aliens that are living in housing that is meant for poor Americans. Either you're too poor, you've got a job, but you can't afford housing, or you are homeless. But you see, when you're homeless, if you don't have an address, the caveat is that you have to have an address to get benefits. So these people who are here illegally, when they come over the border, they're put into housing immediately. That's what Obama did. He flew them and bussed them around the country, put them in temporary housing, which gave them an address. And then they could apply for permanent housing. And a lot of these people, you hear the stories about MS-13, which I'm going to run by one in a minute, were sent to communities all over this country, basically to communities that were purple so they would turn blue. And now they're being moved into red communities to get them to turn purple and eventually blue. So if you're homeless, you're out of luck. But this housing should be for homeless people, for veterans who offered to lay down their lives for us in our stead, to keep us free, to keep other countries free. They were vulnerable to making the ultimate sacrifice. And a lot of them got mental disorders, and they're unable to work, or physical disabilities and mental disabilities, and they're on the street. But these people who just walk right over the border and are here illegally are put into housing, get free housing, and they get welfare and all sorts of benefits, like Auntie Zeituni. Do you know Auntie Zeituni? If you heard about her, that's Obama's aunt. Well, she came over here from Africa, and she got disability and welfare. She got a lot of money a month. She got $1,500 a month, and she got free housing and free food benefits. And she said on camera when they interviewed her that America owed this to her. They're supposed to give this to her. This is even before Obama became president. Well, Obama didn't, offer to pay for Auntie Zeituni. He felt very comfortable letting us pay for Auntie Zeituni. So she got all these benefits. She's dead now, but she got all these benefits, and she was not an American. And she never, ever worked because she was disabled in some way, but she didn't look disabled or sound disabled. She was pretty smart. You see, she said that it's your country. It's not me. It's your system. Your system is offering this to people who are not American citizens. And since your system is offering it, then it is my right to take it. Isn't that interesting? Well, a funny thing happened. See, Ben Carson is extremely intelligent. He came from the poorest of upbringings, didn't have a father, and his mother was, I believe, the youngest of 24 children, and he never thought he was going to make it. In fact, he said he would cross the train tracks, and when the train was going by, he would lay under the train. He didn't think that he had a future. But as it turned out, you see, his mother did a very interesting thing. She pretended that she knew how to read. She pretended she could understand their homework. She said, I want you to show me your homework. She said to all her children, I want you to show me your homework, and I'm going to look it over to make sure you did it right. She wanted to make sure, even though he didn't realize this, he didn't realize that she couldn't read, that she wasn't educated at all, but she pretended she was. And she took an interest in her child's education, all her children's education. And she made them do their homework. She made them have to answer to her and to show that they were doing what they were supposed to do. And he turned out to be a brain surgeon and separated the first set of conjoined twins in the nation. And his brother literally became a rocket scientist. And he was the head of pediatric surgery, brain surgery. I actually heard several things from the left about him, several insults. One of them was, well, he's just a brain surgeon. He's not a doctor. Doctors are the ones that are really intelligent, and scientists are really intelligent. But surgeons just cut up things. I actually heard this. It was probably CNN or MSNBC. My sister must have been here at the time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have heard that. So that means he's stupid, right? Okay. He has to be, because he's a Republican. He's working for Trump. He disagreed with the Affordable Care Act because it was not affordable. And he dared say this to Obama. So the left really hates him. But between the two, we know Ben Carson's grades. And we know he came up from nothing. And he didn't get any handouts. But we don't know Obama's grades. The only thing we do know is that he reads incorrectly off of TOTUS many times and has made many mistakes, like said things like, I've visited all 57 states and we have a few more to go. I won't go into that. There are many of those. And in fact, it's on the web, all his gaffes, which proves how intelligent he is. Well, they also called him a house blank. It begins with an N, ends with an O. I don't want to say the two words together because it's so demeaning, but the left feels it's okay to call him that. And the other day, when he was being questioned, he was actually being badgered. And I'm sure, working for Trump, and all these names they've already called him, and how they demeaned him, you kind of get sensitive and you get ready for the next blow. And this woman was badgering him, saying that how this is totally inhumane to make these children leave these homes. Well, villages from south of the border are being emptied out. Villages. None of the people who are arriving are homeless. We have millions of homeless people. In fact, they only count 1 out of every 3 or 4 people. The count is completely wrong because they did a test where they counted. They would watch the people going out to count how many homeless were on the street. They're supposed to do a survey and interview each person who was homeless, and they noticed that all the people that were missed. And so you have to like triple, quadruple the amount of homeless that they say are actually homeless. As we know that Los Angeles has about 200,000 homeless on the streets. But when these people come in, you see the people who pay taxes and live here and the poor, they can't afford to have children. And they're opting out of having children because they can't afford to have children. Probably the reason why we have skyrocketing abortions. But when you come over the border and you have a child, the system pays for everything. You get housing, every child gets paid for and gets free medical care. And also, this child who doesn't speak any English gets put into the school system. And the teacher, who's already overtaxed as it is, and finds it hard to give each student the proper education and care that they deserve, has to spend all their time for this student who can't speak English. And there's any number of languages and dialects that are spoken south of the border. This child, like native indigenous languages as well, that they might not know. There's 46 in Los Angeles County alone, different languages being spoken in the school system, and each child has to have an interpreter. That's how much it taxes the system. So she's telling him that he's being inhumane. I mean, this man who's saved the lives of children by doing brain surgery on children. She's saying that it's inhumane to put homeless or poor American children and homeless veterans and people who have mental disorders. A lot of homeless people actually have mental disorders, and they end up dying of this exposure because they can't take care of themselves. That's why they need help. They can't keep a job, and they also need help paying their bills. So all these people are going to die, but all these people that are coming over the border are leaving villages. They had homes. Their economic circumstances, they realized that they could get a lot more in America. And to say that I hear that they pay taxes, that's not true. They don't have Social Security numbers. And these people we know are getting benefits and free housing and working under the table. No, you don't have a Social Security number, you don't pay taxes. So that's baloney. Okay. And then we know about the MS-13 gang. In fact, the MS-13 gang that was recently caught because they murdered a young girl, 14 years old, that was an illegal alien herself. You see, these MS-13 gangs, that's why Trump would like to know who's coming over and for people to apply. So we don't have MS-13 gang members coming. And these people came over as undocumented children. They came over as children, supposedly. So we can sift those out, because the community that they kill the most is either African Americans or Hispanics. So if you really care about these, which you don't, Democrats, if you really care about them, then you would want to sift out the wheat from the chaff. You would want to sift out the criminals from the people who might be valedictorians or might not be valedictorians, if you really care about their lives, but you don't. You don't. The circumstance of this MS-13, well, see, in Maryland, they were caught twice, attempted first-degree murder and second-degree murder, and ICE wanted to come and deport them. But Maryland, because it was a sanctuary city, let them go. The Attorney General there let them go because they didn't want them deported. And then they found this girl in a creek. And I'm sure you've heard this story. And when MS-13 kills, and one of them was a girl, the gang members, they're not all boys, one of them was a girl, they do unspeakable things, and they kill them in the most horrendous way. It's a satanic ritual that I'm not going to get into. I've gotten into it before, but it's a satanic ritual. So everyone coming over the border isn't homeless. They have poor circumstances, but we have people in this country who are poor and are homeless and are living on the streets. And the Appalachians, who I've mentioned many times, there are people in this country that are suffering. And even Obama himself, in his books that no one read, Dreams of My Father, said that he was against illegal immigration, because it took money away from the Black community, took jobs away from the Black community. It hurt the African American community who was suffering. So he was against it, having these people come in and taking away from the community that is suffering. Trucks are not supposed to come down my street. They're supposed to get a fine because there's lots of children on this street, but they come down anyway, where they come down slowly. Sometimes they come down really fast, and if they come down really fast, then we can't catch their license plates numbers. But you know, those little children that run across the street, God help us. Anyway, so you've insulted Ben Carson. See, they said, do you know about Oreo? And he thought they said, do you mean Oreo? And there's a reason why. I believe there's a reason why he said that he thought that the person said. It made him look, they say it made him look stupid. He didn't know what Oreo was. There is a term that they gave O.J. Simpson. They called him an Oreo because he didn't have any Black friends, didn't hang out with the Black community. And his second wife was a white woman. And he played golf. At that time, Tiger Woods hadn't come on the scene. And golf was a sport nearly exclusively of white people. So he was called an Oreo. But because of the beating of Rodney King and how the police who pulled him out of the car, he was speeding, he was on PCP, they pulled him out of the car, and about 5 of them beat him up. And they claimed, well, he kept trying to get up and hurt. I mean, how many officers do you need to restrain one person? How many? And we saw the film, we saw the videotape. So they let them off. And because of that, the murders, Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson was murdered after that he was let off. But he was, the thing about that is that there are clearly injustices that happen to the Black community. And Rodney King had said, and you kind of wish that Rodney King had lived. And he died several years ago. He didn't live to an old age. He said, you could tell he was afraid, and he was basically really beaten down. That's probably the reason why he took drugs. He's really beaten down his whole life, his self-esteem. And he stuttered on the camera, and he said, can we just all get along? Because asking the whites and the Blacks, could we just get along now? Can this whole racism and division just be over? And they were the wisest words that we would probably ever hear. After that, there was just division. And that was the last words of wisdom left over from Martin Luther King. Doesn't matter the color of your skin, but the content of your character. And that was kind of like Rodney King was like the last vestiges of Martin Luther King. And after that, there were riots broke out in Los Angeles, and it made sense. And they pulled a very poor white man out of his truck. His name was Reginald Denny. And he was beaten up by a Black gang. And Maxine Waters supported the gang that beat up Reginald Denny. She said it was the right thing to do, basically. The Reginald Denny is probably just as poor as Rodney King was, and it was just a guy driving his truck, doing his job, and he was beaten to a pulp near death. Because the injustice of what these police officers did and the fact that they got let off, which was wrong. beating someone else that's just as much of a victim of the system and as poor as you are doesn't fix the system. You know, because somebody like Reginald Denny would probably agree with you and probably band with you and support you. So beating him up wasn't the right thing. And Maxine Waters has been saying stupid things ever since she's been in office. She should have been taken out of office then, but she wasn't. So getting back to Ben Carson and that Oreo, when he thought, because he'd been called a house, begins with an N and ends with an O. It's actually the French word for black. He was called that. He's been called many names. And when he heard that, he thought he was being called another name because he was sitting there getting screamed at, being told that he was throwing children out on the street. When there are children and there are disabled veterans and there are poor people who are living on the streets in this country, who are poor, who are actually homeless, and the people coming over the border, so it really pisses me off, they're not homeless. Neither are they jobless. You see them coming over the border. They look pretty. They don't look like they've been walking miles. And the children who end up dying because they've been dragging the children miles and they don't care about the lives of these children. They just want to get over the border. Yet the border agents are blamed for it. Yeah, if you drag a child over 2,000 miles, you don't care, you just care about getting over the border and getting into free housing and getting benefits. And these people should be thrown in jail immediately for doing that. But Trump is blamed, and we're blamed for anybody supports Trump is blamed, and the border agents are blamed when these children die, when in fact these detention centers give them inoculations, give them medical care, give them food. They really try to take care of them. It's not their fault if their parents sell them or rent them or sell them into sex slavery so these people can get over the border. These people are the criminals who are coming over the border. Do you understand? These people are the criminals. And if you don't know any of this and you think I'm making this up, then you're not listening to the right news. You're not listening to all the news. You're listening to lies. You need to go down to the border. You need to see this for yourself. You really need to search, because if you really care about people, you care about all people. And if these people are not even homeless and they have jobs, they shouldn't be coming over here and taking money and homes away from people who are homeless and jobless or disabled in some way. Taking homes away from them and those children. But the children in America, we're privileged just to live on the streets of this country. Isn't that right? That's a privilege. To die from exposure on the streets of America, where most of this country gets winter. We're privileged. We're privileged. Right. Yeah. Right. And you're the descendants of the Spanish conquistadors who came over here and conquered all those peaceful native people, right? You're the descendants of those. So you're the ones who want to take America too. Great. Great. So I think Ben Carson, it's amazing how he's hung in this long because he really wants to do the right thing and he's got a good heart. And he's been called too many names for too long. And a man, don't tell me that man isn't intelligent. You hear somebody say Rio, and people who English is a second language, nothing wrong with that, but it's hard to understand what they're saying, and you expect somebody's yelling at you and badgering you and belittling you. You expect to be called a name. And he expected that. So this is to explain why he didn't understand what that person was saying. Because he expected them to call him a name, because they were calling him names. They were saying horrible things to him, which I'm sure you've already heard on the news. Anyway, just trying to get out the truth, because unfortunately, even the most educated, and it's seemingly the educated that I know, don't know any of these things. And they're not listening to the right news. They're listening to the lies. And that's really sad. You're educated in your profession, and you don't have time to research the truth. So this is what I'm doing, and a lot of people on YouTube. Good night, everyone. Have a blessed day. And God bless you, Ben Carson, for sticking in there. God bless you. We're lucky to have you. Well, we're blessed to have you. I'm blessed to have you too. Good night.